Hello and welcome to SafetyChain's Leadership Forum, Leveraging Technology for Best-in-Class Food Safety and Quality Operations. It is my pleasure to introduce you to your moderator for today's webinar, Barbara Levin, Senior Vice President and co-founder of SafetyChain Software. Barbara?
Thank you very much, Patty, and welcome everybody to today's Leadership Forum. Excuse me. Today's webinar is the premier webinar in the SafetyChain 2015 FSQA Technology series, and we're very excited that all of you have been able to join us today. We have an informative event planned for you today with two true industry thought leaders. I'll be telling you a little bit more about Jeff Chilton and Bob Butcher in just a moment, but first let me give you a few housekeeping announcements before we jump into our webinar. Excuse me. First of all, we would like to thank our sponsor for today's event, Food Safety Tech, Patty and Rick Byros and the rest of the group that's helped us organize and present this event to you. So thank you very much to the team at FST. A couple of housekeeping announcements before we begin. We are being hosted for this event by WebEx. Should you have any technical issues during the event and you're still online, you can go out of full screen and send a message to host. If you, for some reason, are thrown out of the event or can't get back in, you can call WebEx technical support directly at 877-509-3239. Everybody will receive a copy of the slides and a link to the recording of today's webinar on Monday. We'll be doing QA at the end of our interview of Jeff and Bob and the questions that we asked them to all the folks that are dialed in online. We'll show you then how to enter your questions. We do have a group of people that are listening as a podcast only, but for those that are online, you'll be able to submit questions and hopefully we'll have a nice interactive Q&A session. Last, for your privacy, you can see the names of the presenting panel and the hosts and your name, but not the names of the other attendees of the webinar. Our agenda is pretty simple today. We are going to talk about the role of FSQA Technologies for best-in-class food safety and quality assurance operations. I'll be interviewing Jeff Chilton for that part. We're then going to be talking to Bob Butcher, and he's going to help us with a case study of how Ipswich Shellfish implemented FSQA technology to automate, streamline, and improve their safety and quality operations. We're going to give you just a little bit of information about food safety chain management and then open it up to your questions. With that, it's my pleasure to really introduce our speakers for today. Very excited to have with us Bob Butcher. Bob has over 40 years experience in the food industry, including positions in food safety and quality assurance, manufacturing, and operations. As the Group Operations Manager for Ipswich, Bob provides direct oversight of branch operations, including production, distribution, food safety, inventory, management, staffing, occupational safety, customer service, and housekeeping. He's also overseeing the SQF certification initiative at Ipswich's 6 facilities. I'm also very excited to introduce Jeff Chilton. For the past 18 years, as the founder of Chilton Consulting Group, Jeff has assisted hundreds of food companies with developing and enhancing their FSQA programs, including helping clients improve operational yield and productivity, something I know he's going to be speaking about with us today. Prior to Chilton, Jeff worked directly in the food industry in various plant management and quality control leadership positions. He's a certified lead instructor for HACCP and teaches industry workshops on basic and advanced HACCP, as well as workshops on SQF implementation. And some of you might have seen the announcement that recently Chilton Consulting Group will become part of Alchemy, where Jeff will serve as the Vice President of Professional Services. So with that, we're very excited, and welcome to our speakers, and welcome to you, Jeff. I think we're going to start with you to kick off today's webinar. So if you're ready, I think we're going to jump right in.
Okay, great. Thank you very much, Barbara. And we're very excited to announce that we are part of the Alchemy family now. to offer a line of professional services in addition to all the great training programs that most people in the food industry are aware that they've had in the past. And I'd like to take a moment and thank all the participants of today's webinar for the opportunity to spend time with you.
Great, thank you. And Jeff, your voice seems to be fading in and out a little bit, so I'm not sure if you're in a headset or not. So, you know, the whole series, and we're so excited to have you here at the kickoff of the SafetyChain FSQA Technology series, where, you know, we're talking about all of the challenges that safety and quality and regulatory folks in food companies are having today and facing, and how emerging technologies, the role that they play in helping to conquer some of these challenges. So with that, you know, maybe let's start with kind of your take. Like you said, you've worked with hundreds of companies. What are the biggest operational challenges that FSQA teams are struggling with today, in your view?
I tell you, Barbara, we certainly work in a very dynamic industry in the midst of significant changes that are coming, both to meet regulatory requirements that are on the horizon, along with, you know, continually changing customer requirements as well. And while we all have an obligation and opportunity to try to continuously improve our food safety and quality systems, so quality assurance managers in each of these organizations and operations individuals have quite a task in front of them to keep up with all the changes in the industry itself. But let me share with you a few of the items that we see as some of the challenges, and starting with the approved supplier management process for most of our clients and those in the industry in general. It's often very challenging to be able to maintain and manage the dozens of the vendors with often hundreds of ingredients that are suppliers to the companies that manufacture these products. And it's very imperative that companies have an effective approved supplier management process and be able to maintain that approved supplier register as well. But beyond that initial approval, there's the ongoing challenges of being able to manage the certificates of analysis and or the letters of guarantee that are required for each delivery of those products to the manufacturers, and then a verification that those results on the individual deliveries actually meet the specification requirements as well. It's a very time-consuming process that many manufacturers have to go through. And then the other piece of that is the opportunity and the obligation to be able to receive and file the third-party vendor audits for all of these companies annually as well. So managing the approved supplier management process is certainly a challenge for companies. A second challenge that we see is, you know, being audit ready 24/7, which really should be the primary goal of all manufacturing companies. And certainly with the implementation of SQF Edition 7.2, unannounced audits are part of that process, so companies need to be ready for audits all the time. But it's critical for companies to be audit ready 24/7, and not just in preparation for a GFSI audit or recertification audit as well. And the way to be ready for those audits is you have to sustain your systems throughout the year to make sure that all the activities that are required by all the various programs in the food safety and quality management system are actually performed and required by the individuals responsible for those. The second is to make sure that we complete all the required records on a daily and a weekly and monthly and ongoing frequencies as required. And then the third challenge is to maintain continual plant readiness, which includes the GMP compliance by all employees on a daily basis, and then the facility conditions as well. A third challenge that many companies are facing are allergen controls. I mean, we all see the headlines in the newsletters every single day where allergen recalls are almost a daily occurrence, and there's quite a challenge in the industry to be able to manage allergens and to be able to prevent recalls. For those companies that operate under USDA inspection, USDA even issued another directive this week, Directive 7230.1, that came out on 3/10, that instructs inspectors to take time to verify both the formulation and the label of that product to make sure that allergens are indeed being properly declared on these labels. So there's going to be continual increasing regulatory oversight to that process. So companies have to make sure that they have an effectively written and validated allergen control program that includes methods for cross-contamination prevention, sanitation controls, scheduling controls, and labeling controls in place as well. And then a fourth item is setting food safety and quality objectives. Each of the GFSI schemes require you to have objectives for your food safety and quality systems. So it's important that processors today develop and measure these objectives to be able to track the system to performance and then to be able to use those results to help reduce their overall cost of quality. So items that are typically included in those objectives would be things like the quantity and number of incidents where you have non-conforming product, corrective and preventative actions, customer complaints. Oftentimes it will include things such as ATP and microbial sanitation results and pathogen performance standards. But processing companies have an opportunity to use this requirement to effectively develop and implement and then manage those food safety and quality system objectives to improve their overall food safety and quality systems. And then to be able to measure that cost to quality, that as you set those objectives and then you measure the incident rates and the impact of those on each occurrence, then you can see how much the quality is truly costing you and then use those results to reduce your cost and continually improve your food safety and quality systems. And then two last things that I'll just mention real quickly is one is certainly a lot of questions related to the Food Safety Modernization Act and how it'll be moved from the proposed rule state to the final rule state, that obviously it's not going away, so companies need to become prepared to be able to become compliant with the FSMA requirements once they're published in the final rule state as well. And that's going to require all companies to be able to move from their existing concept and HACCP plans to be able to perform reassessments of those to comply with the new HARP-C requirements as well. And then the last piece is just, the burden of maintaining these record-keeping systems, that out of all the food safety and quality programs that are in place, we're generating literally thousands of documents with all the monitoring results and verification results, and then how do we manage those record-keeping systems?
Mm-hmm. So quite a few challenges, and we'll be talking about how technology can help manage some of those challenges. Very good insight, Jeff. Everybody's got the same challenges, but when it comes to the biggest gaps, where are you seeing the biggest safety and quality operational gaps, and what are some of the ways that technology can help fill those?
Well, we mentioned briefly about the supplier management process and the challenge to be able to manage that, and specifically when you get into the deliveries of each load that's coming into the companies, and then the vendors are offering the certificates of analysis, and being able to manage those COAs and compare the results to the specifications, that companies often need technology solutions to be able to help manage that process. So that's certainly one that we discussed previously. A second one is in document control, that we just routinely see issues with document control in companies.
Jeff,
yes.
This is Patty. I'm sorry to interrupt, but you're going in and out a little bit. So if you can just be careful with your phone.
Okay, all right.
Great, thank you.
That I'm using. Thank you.
Thank you.
So the second challenge is with the document control systems, to be able to make sure that all the documents are properly controlled, that you have the master document register itself, and that each one of those documents have the revision dates and then changes that have been made previously to those documents as well. And part of that is an education process to all departments within an organization to help them understand that when they have to change a document, that needs to go through a change management process for approvals, and then to be able to update those in the document control registers themselves. And then, again, of course, technology can help with the various document management systems to be able to maintain that system. And then a third area is in the record-keeping practices, that, it's a constantly ongoing challenge and effort to help companies and employees understand the need and how to complete all of these records so that the records themselves are complete and that they're accurate and timely, to be able to capture all the information that's required through that process, and then to make sure that those records are properly reviewed and filed as well. And then one of the biggest things that we see in the industry today is, we spend so much time gathering so much information, but yet not enough time analyzing or using that information as well. So we keep tracks of all the forms, we put them into file folders, but yet how often is a trend analysis done to review the results of those systems to improve your process control and your overall food safety and quality management system. So what we try to do is work with companies to help them complete these trend analysis and make sure that we're using the data effectively as well. And then technology can certainly help automate all of these functions between the supplier compliance, the document management, the record-keeping systems, and as you have a continual repository of this information, then it's easy to be able to retrieve that data and analyze it over a period of time.
Great, thank you. You know, you and I have done webinars before, Jeff, and one of the things that you've spoken on very frequently is how you see technology as really being able to impact safety and quality, productivity, and yield. Can you elaborate a little bit? And then I know we've got kind of a little chart we're going to show people, but maybe you can introduce these concepts, and then we'll go to your chart, because I think these are, you know, these are the kinds of benefits that can create the ROI, obviously.
Absolutely. Thank you. You know, we all know that we work in a very competitive industry, and it's typically based on high volume of products being produced and, unfortunately, often a low margin on those types of products as well. So we often help clients to be able to focus their improvements on 4 key pillars, and that would be safety, quality, yield, and productivity, and then to be able to manage those in a balanced culture with a proper emphasis on each one of those. So what we try to do is help companies optimize their performance, which improves their overall profitability and then helps them minimize their cost. And the technology is a great way to be able to help track the performance of those systems. So we can see what the baselines are, we can set reasonable goals for continuous improvement, and then we can monitor that improvement as well with the goals for each of those attributes for safety, quality, yield, and productivity. We always like to say, you know, we treasure what we measure. So under each one of those pillars, we want to identify which goals have the greatest impact for each company and organization, and how should we measure that and then track that to improvements through the process to show how managing that process results in improved profitability for those client companies.
Great. So you put together this great chart to share with our attendees on some critical areas where technology can really have an impact with safety, quality, productivity, and yield. Maybe you can walk us through some of these benefits and ROI opportunities on this slide here.
Okay, absolutely, and technology can use to help manage each one of those pillars. When we look at it from a food safety perspective, you know, we can use the technology to help be able to define and schedule those tasks that may be related to critical control points within your processing operations, or critical quality points that you have as process control, or level 3 compliance within your SQF systems. So we can schedule those tasks to be performed and then use the technology to be able to capture that information. And one of the best things about it is certainly the technology includes not only what needs to be monitored, but also what the results of that should be. So if we have deviations in that system where you fail to meet a critical limit on a CCP or an operating limit related to a quality control point, then it can throw a red flag and a trigger that system. So we can identify that, we can minimize the amount of product that's going to be related to that nonconformance itself, and then we can implement timely corrective actions itself to be able to reduce that risk of how much product may be exposed to the deviation, and then what we have to do to correct that product to ensure that no adulterated products put into commerce. And then similar from a food quality perspective, we can also use that technology to catch those types of nonconformances early as well. So we want to identify what are the important product characteristics in terms of compliance with the product specification itself, and then we can use the technology to be able to monitor that process, identify when it goes out of control, and then, again, minimize the amount of product that may be as part of that process. So overall, it helps us improve the consistency of the products that are being used, and then processors have the opportunity to use statistical process control tools. So once we set a limit of what it should be, then we can have a target along with an upper control limit and a lower control limit, and be able to measure that process to make sure that we reduce our variability and keep that process under control. And from a productivity perspective, technology helps us automate many of those manual processes that so many companies have such a high labor rate of even quality assurance technicians or operations personnel that are responsible to monitor and verify these various attributes. And by automating that and putting in a technology, it can often reduce the amount of time that's required to gather that information and report it. And then once you have that information in an electronic format, then management now has the opportunity to focus on how do we analyze that data correctly versus instead of just taking time to enter the data, then let's use that information. Let's manage it and do the trend analysis to identify the continuous improvement opportunities for that process control and then to be able to reduce that variation throughout our process. And then a similar approach to the yield, that technology helps in the same way that we can identify when these nonconformances occur. We can implement more timely corrective actions for, which ultimately reduces the rework that could be associated with that process. It increases our product yields.
Great. Thank you, Jeff, for that. Let's move on to our next question. So, we are seeing food safety and quality assurance technology being adopted across the industry, across all the industry sectors, and we're seeing it in growing numbers. But yet, even though food companies have adopted all kinds of technologies for other things, there still seems to be some resistance when it comes to adopting technology for safety and quality. What do you think some of the reasons for that resistance are, and how can the folks that see the value in here, how can we overcome that?
And I think there are legitimate reasons for that in the past. I think as an industry, there's been a reluctance to be able to adopt these type of changes, and I think some of the reasons for that is, one is just a resistance to change in general. Second issue is there was always a concern about the costs that were associated with these systems, and given the fact that we do operate in a low-margin business, whether or not companies would have the budget or the ability to do this. Quite honestly, I don't think the technology of years in the past, were really added enough value to justify the change. But we've seen some huge changes in that even in recent years as well. So I really do think it's time to make a quantum leap, that we need to move out of the stone ages that we've operated in the past into the 21st century technology. And, based on some of the technology solutions that are available today that are now cloud-based, so we can gather information on mobile devices and we can report it and then use that information much more effectively, I think today's technologies have a strong return on investment opportunity to help companies be able to better manage and improve these systems. Just like so many processing companies today have automated systems for preventative maintenance programs or master sanitation schedule programs, it's time for QA to move up into that level as well. So we have automated systems that can help us manage and improve our food safety and quality assurance systems.
Right. Yeah, I think you really hit a nail on the head there, too, with the emerging of new technologies. Some of the older technologies, if they're behind the firewall, you've got to sit at your desk to use them. Well, I don't know any food safety folks that sit at their desks, right? They're at the plant, they're in the field, they're at the regulators or their customers. So having those anywhere, anytime technologies, I think, is really made it much easier to be able to do your food safety and quality. You mentioned, though, that expense is always an issue. Food industry is low profit margin, and we've seen with these technologies very strong ROI. What are some of the keys, in your mind, to building a strong business case to invest in today's technology innovations?
I think it does start with an ROI analysis. That you have to look at the cost of the systems and technologies that are available to you, and then make an accurate comparison of how much time each company is spending to be able to gather all that information right now. So if you look at all the labor and the man hours that are invested by quality assurance technicians and operations personnel to be able to gather all this information that's required, and then yet you look at how much that time can be improved and reduced by using these automated systems, I think you can often justify a return on investment just by a reduction in the manual labor that's being required to be able to gather this information currently. And then once you move to these automated systems, what I really think the real opportunity and the golden nugget is to be able to utilize that talent better. So instead of taking the time of your QA managers and technicians and these high-value individuals that contribute to the company, instead of just gathering this information, then you can redirect some of their responsibilities and efforts to be able to focus on things that truly add more value to the food safety and the quality system itself. So, we've always wanted to look at products like this as an insurance policy to be able to help produce or prevent those catastrophic costs that could be associated with recalls or foodborne illness outbreaks. But it's gone well beyond the insurance policy at this point in time. And now I think the technology does help us actually optimize that performance, and there are good ROI opportunities to be able to adopt these systems. And this is what we really need in place now to be able to manage food safety and quality systems of today.
Great. Thank you very much, Jeff. Really strong insight. Don't go away. We're going to talk to Bob now. Jeff, don't go anywhere, Jeff. I'm
I'll be
sure
right
there
here.
are a
Thank you.
lot of questions for you. But we're going to move on now to Bob Butcher with Ipswich Shellfish Company. That's very hard to say, Bob. Who's implemented technology and has had some really great success and results. So, Bob, welcome to today's Leadership Forum, and perhaps you can, and perhaps you can tell us first a little bit about Ipswich and Ipswich's FSQA environment.
Thank you, Barbara. Absolutely, and you're right, Ipswich Shellfish is kind of a tongue twister. The company George Pappas started the company back in 1935, buying clams from local clam harvesters in Ipswich, Massachusetts, and had a number of local folks shucking the clams, taking them out of the shell and making frying clams. Industry has obviously come a long way. You couldn't do it in your house anymore, thank goodness. We've grown from the household business. We now have 6 locations. We have 2 in Maine, 1 in Ellsworth, Maine, 1 in Kennebunk, Maine, the largest one in Ipswich, Massachusetts, and we also are in Connecticut, Maryland, and Charleston, South Carolina. Carrying not just shellfish, we have the whole line of fresh and frozen seafood, including our lobster operations in a number of locations, but in Ipswich we hold on average about 100,000 pounds of live lobsters, and we ship those not only to local restaurants, but we have distributors across the nation, and we ship internationally all week long. We do have MSC Chain of Custody certification in all locations, and we are certified in the Ipswich facility, SQF certified, and we're in process of certifying our Maryland location, United Shellfish Company, and our Connecticut Shellfish location this year. And the plan is next year to get our 2 main locations and our Charleston SQF certified. So it's a long way from the family business, although I take that back. It is still a family business. George Pappas passed away. Chrissy Pappas is the president right now, and Alexander is the vice president.
So still a family business, but not in the kitchen anymore.
That's right, for sure.
Yeah. So, you and I have spoken at conferences together, Bob, and you're such a forward-thinking proponent of technology. When it came to looking at technology for Ipswich, what were your business drivers? What were you trying to achieve by getting rid of paper and going to an automated system?
The thought, we had enough challenges just keeping ready for all the regulatory agencies that always knock on your door and, hi, I'm here to inspect you and help you and all that fun stuff. Thinking of going SQF brought it up to a different level, no question about it, and the requirement to be audit ready at all times. The paper system, we've gotten very good at Excel spreadsheets, but there was still a tremendous amount of manual papers. You couldn't analyze the data. There were no doubt filing issues with it, but just human error, filling out a piece of paper or crossing it out wrong or not putting the right information in. It was a constant challenge just taking care of the paperwork, spending more time doing that than actually running the business. And then updating all the forms. The paper forms, we had on the bottom of our paper forms that they're uncontrolled, make sure you have the current version, but that gets to be like a sign. No one sees it anymore. So people would grab an old form. You know, it was just human error. There's 6 plants, a lot going on in all the plants. You know, so it got to be more a challenge to trying to keep up with it and take care of those types of errors. You know, making sure we had the right versions, make sure we kept all the paperwork proper, and being able to retrieve the information. Once you got the information, then you had to, in order to really analyze it, you had to do something with it. I got to be one of the probably highest paid data entry clerks just to get information. You know, you have to, if it's on paper, in order to analyze it, you can sit there and go through reams of it, or you can get it on a spreadsheet, but then who's going to do that and how are you going to tie it in? Just, you know, so that was our drivers. We had to do something.
You wanted to analyze your information versus enter it, sounds like.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Mm-hmm. So when you started to look for technology, you know, what were your requirements? What were the things that were important to Ipswich?
We needed a partner that would work with us. We're scattered around the country, or the East Coast anyway, all paper forms, and I thought we needed somebody that could implement those paper forms and help us with it, and that was knowledgeable in the food industry and the requirements for not only GFSI requirements, but the FDA requirements and all the regulatory agencies that we have to deal with on a day-in, day-out basis. So someone that could work with us, not just give us a boilerplate program, somebody that could tailor the program for not only the seafood industry, but for Ipswich Shellfish specifically. So somebody that had best practices not only in technology, but also knew the industry and knew what our requirements were. And obviously we selected SafetyChain.
Great, thank you. So, you know, we've spoken a lot. Jeff talked about ROI and getting investments for technology. How did you build your business case to get the higher ups to okay the investment?
The biggest buy-in was we could not fail an SQF inspection. We could not fail any inspection. We have, it's one thing delivering to a local restaurant. Their expectations are a little different than the national chains that we deal with. You fail an inspection and it gets broadcast to all these major chains, and that's a major problem. So it's, failing an audit is not an option for us. So what do we need to do to make sure that we don't fail? There are a lot of people spending time chasing paperwork, filing paperwork, so there's a cost factor to that. Trying to get our hands on or a handle around our vendors was a major problem with the paper-based system. We couldn't do that from a lot of standpoints. You know, we had to protect our brand to our food service customers. We're again, direct store delivery to local restaurants, but also some of the major chains. And we have to keep up with it, not only the technology, but with the requirements. And really wanted to improve. You can't stay still. You have to keep on moving ahead.
Mm-hmm. Bob, I know that you've spoken a lot about performance improvements and longer shelf life. Can you tell us a little bit about your thoughts on technology and product performance and shelf life?
Sure. The technology from us in the seafood industry, the technology isn't going to make the fish last longer, but looking at the fish properly, documenting the fish, doing a trend on the vendors, what kind of issues you have, looking at what type of disposals you have makes a huge, huge difference. Knowing that the plants, all 6 of our plants, that the personnel are looking at the products and recording the information as they should be is huge. You know, before we implemented this, I would look at the paperwork when I got to each of the plants, but I can only spend so much time looking at the paperwork. Now, no matter where I am, I can keep a trend on it, take a look and see what's going on. You know, so that in and of itself helps protect our brand, helps protect the seafood quality. We're looking at it closely every day.
Great, thank you. So, you know, when anything is new and implementing safety and quality technology in food companies, not so new anymore, but still an early adoption, having gone through an implementation, what are some of the lessons learned that you think can help our audience maybe avoid some pitfalls?
First thing is we thought we had a pretty good paper system. And we figured all we'd have to do was copy it and put it onto something that'd be easy to use. But as we were going through the forms, we really need to stop and take a look at it and have some in-depth conversations with not only the technology company, but also all the plants and the people that deal with it. We changed a lot of the records. Instead of having one record that we would pass around to 4 different people fill it out, now we needed 4 different records. But it's easier for them to get hold of. They have tablets, so they can complete the records when it's appropriate time and put the correct information there. The biggest thing is really keeping an open mind, taking a look at what questions you're asking, who should be doing this record, what questions and how can you ask the question. We built in almost all of our forms control limits so that if the temperature has to be below 40, if the individual checks 41 degrees, it's going to red flag it immediately. He has to put in a corrective action. That notice is going to go to all management. So we built in safeguards so that the human error we had before with the paper forms, we then took care of. So that takes some thought process. You know, where can you put a control like that in so that you actually do control it automatically, so that when you're reviewing the information, you know that it's correct.
Great, thank you. So how, you know, we've spoken about change and adoption and change management. You've had great adoption. How did you achieve that?
It took some time. Very easy for the folks that were responsible in the plants for signing off, the HACCP certified individuals that have signed off the documents and file them, or someone that would have to ask or answer the inspector's questions. They saw it as a huge labor saving, much easier to retrieve information and know that it's accurate. The monitoring records that are completed on the plant floor, and again, they're using tablets, that took a little bit of training, as in any new technology, but once they got the hang of it, they love it. We don't have a huge quality assurance staff. We have 6 plants. They're not tremendous. It's a family-owned business. We all wear multiple hats. So the same individual that will be completing a monitoring record will do that at one point of the day. The rest of the day, he'll be cutting fish or doing something else. So, you know, it's not people sitting in an office. It's people that are on the plant floor living and breathing our industry. So in some individuals, it took a little while to get used to. So what we did, I spent time at each plant going through it with each individual. We did training for all the people and rolled it out one location at a time. Once you had 1 or 2 people at the plant that began to understand the system and use the system, then it went right through very easily. They could see how much time it saved, how much easier it made their job, so they could actually do their job instead of taking care of paper. Excuse me.
Great, thank you. So how's it going? What are your results of, getting tongue-tied. What have your results been to date since you've automated?
Very good. We just completed a desk audit at our Maryland location that went very well. We showed the auditor, desk audit, for those that aren't familiar, is part of the SQF process. They would look at all the paperwork, the policies and procedures. He was very pleased with it. We've had numerous inspections in the plants right now based on from the local regulatory shellfish authorities to the FDA to NOAA, and they're impressed with the security of the system and with the ease of retrieving the information. We're at the point now where we have enough information in there to run some significant trend analysis and reports, and there's some functionality within the system so we can run pivot tables and really dig into the information, and I no longer have to be a data entry clerk. It's wonderful.
I love it. Excuse me, I'm going backwards. So thank you very much, Bob. Same as Jeff, don't go anyplace. I'm sure we're going to have questions from you. What we're going to do now is, first I'm going to take us out of full screen. And everybody should be able to see now on the lower right-hand side of their screen a Q&A tab. I'm going to spend just a couple of minutes and show you a few slides on food safety chain management technology, and then we're going to take your questions. So you can enter those questions while I go through the next couple of slides. So I'd like to tell you a little bit about SafetyChain. We are the leader in food safety chain management technology. This is a food safety and quality assurance solution that's designed to help enforce FSQA at all points along a company's supply chain for what comes in, what they do with it, and where it's going next. It helps ensure workflow, processes, and documentation. And it also creates a central repository of all of your safety and quality data for trending, assessments, reporting, and audit readiness. There's really 6 key benefits: ensuring safety and quality compliance and audit readiness, eliminating manual, manual processes, and allowing you to scale to do more with less. We know everybody has more to do these days when it comes to safety and quality, but the only thing that a lot of companies don't have more of are people, so that scalability is a big benefit. It helps prevent withdrawals, rejections, and recalls, enable meaningful continuous improvement, improve performance on key performance indicators for operational ROI, and in the end, all of this really means protecting your company's brand and market value by managing risk. Food safety chain management is designed to be preventive. You can think of it as almost a smoke alarm in the cloud, making sure that all of the tasks get done, making sure that non-conformance alerts get to the right people in the fastest manner possible to put timely CAPA in place. So proactively preventing safety and quality issues before they get out of control versus reactively trying to figure out how problems started and how to repair that damage when something does get to that withdrawal or recall or rejection state. Our solution is called SafetyChain for Food. It's a single platform for food safety and quality assurance, powered by mobile applications, so it's accessible from anywhere at any time, whether you're at your desk, in the field, at a plant, store and transport, in a store. The modules include supplier compliance, food safety management, food quality management, as well as compliance for regulatory GFSI, customer and internal compliance. We serve all industry sectors, including suppliers and growers, manufacturers, distributors and brokers, as well as retail and food service. And with that, we are going to go to the questions now. I have a little bit of information on this slide to show everybody. If you would like more information on the consulting services that will still be provided through the Chilton professional services arm of Alchemy, you can contact Chilton at chiltonconsulting.com. If you've got questions for Bob and you'd like to contact him directly, you can see Bob's email there, bob@ipswichshellfish.com. For more information at SafetyChain, info@safetychain.com. Also want to make you aware we've got some fabulous events coming up as part of this 2015 FSQA Technology series that we're presenting. On March 20th, there's a demo day so you can see the solution that Bob has just spoken about. I'm very excited about a tech talk that we're going to be having on March 31st, all about leveraging technology to tackle FSMA with Melanie Newman from the Atchison Group and Nye Hardy from Dole Fresh Vegetables. We also have an April 17th leadership forum on the role of technology in risk management, brand protection, and supply chain controls, featuring David Atchison as well as Nancy Wilson from Wawa. So you can go to our website and, and you can sign up for all of those. And with that, we're going to get to some questions that we have. We've got a question from Frances, and this is for you, Jeff. She's saying, Jeff indicated a willingness to embrace new technologies for record keeping and data processing. Does that willingness extend to embracing new methodologies or technologies for actually doing product testing and analysis in the lab?
I think it certainly does. I mean, you can take that technology and use it in all of those areas as well, including driving the activities that need to be performed and then being able to manage the results of that analysis also. So I certainly think it is applicable throughout, not only on the plant floor for the record-keeping requirements that are involved, but also managing the data that's utilized throughout the food safety system.
Right. And there are a lot of different kinds of technologies out there to fill, almost any need. Let's see. Brian has a question for me asking if the SafetyChain software is adaptable to a variety of plant sizes, small, very large. And the answer to that is yes. We've got customers that are, 5 and 10 million in revenue, all the way to customers like Dole, who's, the largest produce company in the world. Cloud-based systems are very scalable to meet companies' needs. Bob, we have a question for you. Excuse me. Joan is saying, one of Bob's bullets said that technology had an impact on cost of nonconformance. Can you elaborate a little bit on that?
Absolutely. If there's a problem, recorded problem with product coming in the door and it's not raised immediately to all the folks that can actually act on it, could receive it, and all of a sudden we have it in the plant, we have to deal with resolving the issue or getting it back to the vendor. Since we've built most of the monitoring records so that if it is out of the range, acceptable range, we have to put in a corrective action immediately, and that form gets emailed to management to react to it right away. So it's a timely basis. We're making sure that we check what we need to check, that it's falling within the range it needs to, and that people that can deal with it or know about it immediately.
Great. Thank you. Jeff, excuse me. Anthony is saying, in your opinion, what are some keys to change management to ensure adoption throughout safety and quality organizations?
I believe it takes communication and then a process to be able to manage that change. So first off, there has to be a communication process with managers and individuals in all departments to understand when something changes, how that change notification needs to be made to various individuals that are responsible for that. So we actually get buy-in to the process so everyone understands that they can't just unilaterally go out and make a change without proper communication. And then once the need for a change is identified, then there needs to be a process to be able to manage that change, and generally like a change management control form that talks about what the change is, why it's necessary, and then with the proper sign-off and approvals to make sure it gets properly integrated into the entire food safety and quality management system.
Great, thank you. Question from Jack is saying, how do you show ROI for a business case? I'll start with, there are several resources that are out there. A lot of vendors, SafetyChain is one of them, that actually have ROI calculators where we can use scenarios provided by our customer or prospect to then calculate ROI in several key areas. Consulting groups, I know Jeff's group has helped companies build business cases for technology. Bob or Jeff, do you have anything to add to that on how to show potential ROI to get investment?
Definitely sorry, this is Bob. Looking at the number of hours that are spent, doing any type of time study would clearly show that. And, obviously the hidden costs of what happens if you don't complete it properly or if you don't pass the inspection or whatever. Time study is well worth it.
To add to that as a comment as well, so I would look at just not only the tangible costs like the time studies that Bob's alluding to as well, but look at all the factors that contribute to that return on investment because there's certainly more time. And then also look at process improvement opportunities that you have to assess whether or not if you feel like this technology could help you improve a product yield or improve other aspects of your operation as well, then those could certainly be contributors to the ROI calculation as well. But there's a lot of areas where don't look at just the tangible costs, but then look at also how can you overall improve your food safety system and improve the results for the safety, quality, yield, and productivity by using a device like that to factor all of those elements into that ROI calculation.
Great, thank you. Bob, question from Marianne. Marianne is asking if you could summarize the steps that you took to evaluate and select a solution.
There's a number of steps and kind of moving in tandem. Identifying what we wanted out of it and started with a web search and then whatever conferences either I went to or any of the folks in the organization went to, pulling the information that they pulled back from that. And a comfort level, it definitely, in any of our projects, is never just a matter of cost. It's what you get out of it. Unless it meets your expectations, saving $1 doesn't do anything. It's like buying second-grade fish. It just doesn't work all the way. So it was seeing what's available and having conversations with vendors and people within our organization. Since we're spread in a number of states, people go to different seminars, hear different things, go on different webinars. There's no one, I didn't find one answer. We pooled information from a number of places.
Okay, great, thank you. I'm going to scroll here. I think that actually was the last of the questions. Let me see. Yep, I do think that that was the last of the questions. So with that, I'd like to thank both Jeff and Bob. Very insightful information. Thank you so much for taking time from what we know are always busy days to join us. Thanks again to Food Safety Tech for helping sponsor the event. We invite you to go to foodsafetytech.com. There's a lot of great information on the site. There's also a resource center that SafetyChain sponsors called the Supply Chain FSQA Resource Center. There's always great updates and news and white papers that you can download there. Simply go to foodsafetytech.com and click on Resource Center. And with that, thank you, everybody, and have a great day and a great weekend.
Thank you very much.